Hi guys, welcome to today's Warrior Family Tip at 10. I have been thinking about this topic a lot lately, and it's really been good for me, like my mental happiness, as well as for my relationships, and in a lot of other ways. It's been really helpful. It's something that I've been thinking about for a lot of years, but it's kind of really started to hit home lately how important it is and where some of the gaps were in my understanding of this principle. But it kind of starts with some of the worst marriage advice I ever got. And I think maybe they didn't mean to say it this way, but this is the way I took it. Once you're married, it's my responsibility to make my husband happy, and it's his responsibility to make me happy. And so we have this responsibility. We're no longer in order to have a happy marriage, that we needed to be focused on how to help the other person be happy. And if you're kind of familiar with codependency or any of that stuff, you could probably see why this would be not very good advice, because we're not in charge, or we can't control anybody's happiness. Like, my happiness is completely on me. I get to choose it, or I get to not choose it or reject it. I get to choose how I react to other people's expressions of love, or expressions of frustration, or their actions towards me, whether they be good or bad, right? My reaction is always completely up to me. And same with my husband's. And so trying to make somebody else happy often resulted in frustration, because maybe they weren't happy or whatever else, right? So, like in our marriage, my husband is he's a critical thinker, and he's always looking to solve problems. I mean, he graduated with an MBA in organizational behavior, right? Like, that's what he loves to do, is like see problems and figure out ways to solve them. And so if I thought my responsibility was to make him happy, and I would do something that I thought would make him happy, and instead of noticing it, he might have noticed like a different thing that could be fixed or could be better, then I would just be miserable all the time, right? Because I was like, well, it's never good enough. And I would just kind of take that on myself and feel angry at him. And he wasn't even sure why, because he didn't realize like that was my motive. And he was just kind of being honest with what he thought. And I was just like, okay, things are never good enough. And it just caused a lot of problems, right? And I think it causes a lot of problems in a lot of marriages when we're thinking that our spouse's behavior or happiness is contingent upon ours. And then we have this codependency of like, I'm trying to make you happy, you're trying to make me happy, and we're both failing. And it becomes this downward spiral in a lot of ways, and resentment and unmet expectations and all sorts of things. And so it wasn't, it was after a few years of this, like, um, things not working, because things weren't, like, I kind of realized, like, wait a minute, there's nothing I can do that's ever going to make him happy if he doesn't choose to be happy. And I'm not saying my husband is like not a happy person, but in general, to whatever issues we were trying to solve together or whatever. And so it finally, like, it kind of just struck me that, and I remember telling him this after a few years, like, I realized like I am doing the best with my weaknesses and with the things I know. And that means that the house isn't always going to be clean and things aren't always going to be right, but I can confidently say that I'm doing what I can. And, and so I'm just going to move forward, continue to do that, and trust that you believe that. Um, and then if there's something that we need to talk about, then we can talk about it. But I don't want to constantly live in this state of, oh shoot, I didn't do this. Is that gonna make him grumpy or whatever else? And he's like, oh yeah, yeah. It's my responsibility to be happy. I don't, we each have that responsibility on ourselves. And so, and so that was good. And I've been kind of working on that for a long time, and it's just wasn't quite, um, there was something still kind of like, I still kind of felt a little bit of that responsibility, or um, I don't know what it was, but there was something. I think it's my people pleasing way of being. I like to make people happy, and it's not possible to do that, right? So people pleasing is kind of a facade, and it's a selfish thing. And it wasn't until I understood the difference between selfishness and self awareness, and this has been pretty recent, that I started to realize, like, oh, this is the key. So, the other marriage advice that I think people get that is also very damaging, and I think people get this advice because they realize, wait, this other way of being isn't working. Like, I can't make my husband happy. So then they get to this other, also damaging marriage advice that says, your job is to make yourself happy. And once you're happy, then you'll spread that happiness and the people in your family will be happy too. And so then you become very self-centered, like, is this making me happy? No, then I'm not going to do it. And is this making me happy? And so we're constantly looking at, like, is this, and you know from experience, I'm sure, from seeing other people's lives, that people who are constantly trying to be happy, making themselves happy, are not happy people. They're selfish people, and selfishness doesn't bring happiness. And so that wasn't the answer either. And that always kind of felt wrong to me. I knew that wasn't right, just based on the understanding I had of the gospel and how Christ was and how he was not focused on how do I be happy. He was just focused on serving and loving. And I was like, well, how do you not have this codependency where you're trying to make people happy, but also, you know, learn to not be selfish? How do those two things work together? And so I kind of just went back and forth between them, trying to figure it out. And I realized that the times I was most happy was when my motive was genuine love. Like I genuinely was doing something because I loved the people. It wasn't expected. It wasn't something that I was doing to make other people happy or not grumpy or whatever else. It was because I genuinely wanted to do it. And so recently a friend recommended this YouTube video, and in my group coaching group, we've been talking a lot about this codependency and how to get out of it and how to try to, and it's just hit me more and more as we've talked about it and as I've been practicing, that it's this self-awareness of our motive. Why am I doing this? That helps us. It's not selfishness, it's self-awareness. What is my motive for this? And it helps me be able to move forward in a genuine way. So as I've been doing that, I've just found so much more joy in everything I do. It becomes much more like I've found myself dancing with my kids, just being more happy in the moment, just feeling more joy in everything, even cleaning the house. I like, what's the most loving thing I can do right now in how we clean the house? And it's like, well, we work together and we do it, and we and I teach, and it also did involve some discipline probably too. And you know, when people there's consequences, as I'm saying, like if you're not working with us, then you have an extra job at the end or whatever. But it's loving because I'm teaching them and I'm working with them, and it's a really fun, something I really enjoy. And it's the same thing with like what I'm doing for my husband. Like I used to kind of resent, like if he left something on the floor, I'd be like, okay, I guess I'll clean that up or whatever. But you know, he gets grumpy at me if I don't put something away, or and so it's more of like a resentful thing instead of like, oh, he left something and I do that all the time and I'm just gonna clean it up. And so it's this like motive of true love and and not because of expectations, and it's so much more happy. And I think the other problem we sometimes have is that we're judging another person's motivation. And this especially happens in marriage, I think. Like I'll see him doing something. I'm like, is he doing that for a selfish reason, or is he really doing that out of love? And how can I possibly judge, and how can I know? And I think I can just ask. And that's what I've been trying to remember to do more too. Like if I question something and I wonder, like if there's some information I don't know, then I'll ask, oh, why are you doing that? And he would be like, well, I just needed it to be done, so I just did it. Or, oh, I just noticed that you were really busy and I thought I would help. And so when I question, like I find, oh, okay, my motive, he's not doing this for some selfish motive, or if he is, like, you know, then I know, like, oh, this requires um, like I'm doing this because I expect this in return or whatever. And I mean, I don't, he's never said that. But if that's the case, then maybe he can be more self-aware and I can be more aware of like, oh, okay, this is the reason. And so just communicating that to each other, we can kind of understand, like, instead of trying to guess and be unsure and then not accepting and receiving that love. And that's what I think is just important to say. Like, I just want to know, like, if you're showing me love, I want to be able to receive it with a full heart and embrace it and be happy instead of like questioning, right? And so that's why I'm asking, so that I can receive it in the way it's meant to be given, you know? And I think that that's a much happier and less like frustrating way to go about things and in how we serve and love one another in a marriage too. So I think just really, I've kind of just understood the nature of love a lot more clearly lately. Like, love is a gift from God, and it's his love. Like, we can give it to others, but it's not ours, it's his. And we can receive it from others, but it's not theirs, it's his. And we're just doing our best to feel it, to share it, and and not to feel like, it's some sort of transactional item or some sort of, um, it's so different when our motives are from love instead of a selfish place, because then we're giving something that's not love, and I'm not sure what it is. It could be a myriad of things in the name of love, and that's very deceiving, and we're deceiving ourselves, and then just not healthy. So yeah, if I could like teach my kids like good marriage advice, I would say, yeah, don't feel responsible for making your spouse happy. That's not your job. Just feel responsible for asking God how you can show His love that day. That's your job, is just sharing His love and receiving His love and being joyful in the moment, seeing the best way to do that, and trial and error, and just kind of focus on that, because otherwise you lose focus when you're looking at other people and how to make them happy, and that makes you miserable. So just some of the thoughts I've been thinking about, some things I wanted to share. I'd love to hear if you guys have any like worst marriage advice you ever got. You can type them in the comments. I'll read them later, or you can type them in now and I can comment on them. Or if you have any thoughts about what I shared in codependency, anything you've learned about that and how you've been able to overcome it, I'd love to hear that too. So have a great Monday, and I'll talk to you soon.